Nairobi, in general, is surrounded by slums. It is a very big contrast. A lot of development which takes place in the posh areas of the few people rich, but hardly any development happens to the people, majority of the people of Nairobi. So you can see the majority of the people of Nairobi actually live in slums, and the slums grow big. Life is harder for people who live in the slums than the poor people who live in the countryside. You talk about everything: lack of water, lack of sanitation, overcrowding, the culture of violence, whatever is the rape, crime, and poverty, diseases, HIV. All the worst things really happen in the slums. It is where people actually live day and night with physical and psychological torture. It is a hard life. It is a life which reduces human beings to the state of animals.
Nairobi, capital de Kenia. Nairobi, la ciudad donde más de la mitad de su población vive en barriadas. Nairobi, que se supone sería una suerte de escaparate de África, un paraíso capitalista. Aquí se suponía que el consumismo y el capitalismo salvaje acallarían las grandes ideas de pensadores africanos de izquierda como Lumumba y Nyerere, pero algo resultó muy mal. Ahora Nairobi se ahoga en su propia sangre y excrementos y se atraganta con la polución y la inmundicia. Cada año la violencia intertribal cobra cientos, a veces miles de vidas. Casi todas las mujeres de las barriadas sufren violencia sexual, incluso violaciones. Las tasas de homicidio son las más altas de toda África. La gente local la apoda Nairobi o Nairobo. Probablemente es la ciudad más agresiva y capitalista de todo el continente africano y una de las más brutales e indiferentes de todo el planeta, al menos en lo que refiere a la gran mayoría de habitantes que sufre las más terribles carencias.
A lady was telling me there, who works there, they just disposed 700 bodies yesterday.
700 bodies that nobody claimed.
Yes.
So what kind of people are these? Usually poor people.
Yeah. People that maybe from accidents, they die and no one claims them. After 3 months, if they are not claimed, they dispose them.
But they come usually from Kibera and from
This whole area.
From
That's
all
the
the
cities.
slums.
Yeah.
truth is, a majority of them live below the poverty level. Actually, some of them earn nothing in a day. And those who earn something in a day have a large family to divide that with. For example, we have older women who take care of not only their children, but also their grandchildren. Most of the children you see are orphaned, based on what you asked me earlier, that is HIV/AIDS, and also other deaths that they treat as mysterious.
She think nobody's working to get people out of the house.
Oh, they are still in process.
So where is the house exactly? Is it the house under the cars?
Yes,
Under that white container? But it was 2 days already since the train derailed. Are they angry that nobody is doing anything? We saw Red Cross just walking around doing nothing.
they are not angry, they're just waiting.
Not angry, just waiting.
People, they don't feel they own this country because the country doesn't recognize them, and it's very painful for a country that living in a country that cannot help you. I told you about my life in the slum, how slum is associated with crime, and being born in slum. To be a thug is obvious, and that's the life we live. And now with new friends, all of my friends who used to go and rob people together, they are all shot.
How difficult is it to be a girl here? I mean, what challenges are they facing?
First of all, it's rape.
Rape?
Yeah. Like a man can just force you, or when you are a baby, men defile even 5 years old babies. So as a girl, no, it's challenging, and again, it's traumatizing. Because when you are raped, it's something which can't come out from your mind easily. It will take time, especially when somebody rapes you and then he gives you money so that you can shut up. You can be raped by your stepfather or your uncle. You can be raped by your stepbrothers or any relative. And you cannot miss 8 out of 10 girls who are raped in Kibera, but they just keep quiet. They don't have anywhere to report. They just shut up because of shame and all that.
The life in Madan is not good because of so many prostitution here. So many people, they die, something they call drugs.
How young are the women when they engage in prostitution here?
12 years, 13 years, yeah.
Do they get infected? Is there a lot of...
Yeah, there's many infections because someone they get HIV/AIDS, someone they die because of so many diseases. Yeah, there's so many infections in that life because the children, they are too young. They don't know how to take care of their life. They don't know how to protect their life.
Could you please tell us about the slums in East Africa? Obviously, Kenya is not the only place which is suffering from these terrible settlements.
As far as I've seen, in most of the countries I've visited in Africa, I've been to Nigeria, Tanzania, you name it, many of the countries. The problems that we have is really the adoption of the neoliberal agenda in a situation whereby the superstructure that comes with that neoliberal agenda does not exist. So we have issues of land, ownership, land title, land tenure, lack of employment that drives people from the rural areas into towns. There's no employment when they get to town, and so eventually what happens is that people have to make do best as they can without the government actually taking any responsibility on their welfare.
Las peores cosas que deben enfrentar los habitantes de las barriadas son la inseguridad y la falta de protección. Las víctimas de ataques sexuales reciben muy poca ayuda. En el campo y en la ciudad, quienes han perdido el trabajo o se enferman suelen morir de hambre. La asistencia gratuita para los enfermos graves es casi inexistente. Si no se paga la cuenta del hospital, con frecuencia los pacientes son tomados como rehenes, y eso puede ocurrir incluso con los bebés recién nacidos. Los kenyatas tienen derechos, por cierto, pero los habitantes de las barriadas suelen carecer de educación y desconocen cómo exigir lo que les corresponde. El sistema judicial protege a los poderosos, no a la mayoría que es pobre. Para cambiar esta situación, las personas deben ser empoderadas por la vía de la educación. Aun cuando en Kenia el sistema educativo es muy corrupto, en él pueden encontrarse personas decididas y valientes.
Como nosotros sabemos muy bien, aprendiendo la historia del mundo, sobre todo en Asia, en América Latina, donde educación ha liderado el crecimiento económico, social y humano por lo general en estos países. Es muy importante invertir en estas poblaciones, casi mitad de la población en Nairobi, como 2 millones, 3 millones viven en barrios marginales. Por ejemplo, ¿por qué? Porque la educación, yo no hablo de educación en el término escolarización, educación, aprender algo, aprender a pensar por sí mismo, aprender a pensar, hacer cosas para sí mismo, para su familia, para la comunidad, aprender a vivir juntos, aprender a coexistir entre la comunidad, aprender a contribuir a la sociedad. Es muy importante, todo eso ocurre en la comunidad escolar, en la comunidad de aprendizaje, en estos barrios marginales donde existen muy pocas oportunidades de crecer, aprender, hacer su vida bien, su vida también para la vida para la familia. Educación es lo único que necesita en realidad para poder salir de este ciclo de pobreza. Para las mujeres que son muy vulnerables a la violencia sexual y física, y también a hombres que tienen que apoyar a sus padres, a sus familias, en sus comunidades. Todos necesitamos educación, sobre todo ellos necesitan educación para poder salir de ese ciclo de violencia, a veces el ciclo de pobreza.
When somebody is poor and does not see any end to the poverty, then they start despairing. And that despair is the one that makes them not to try out some things. So with education, when children come to school, then the teachers have to go an extra mile. Apart from implementing the curriculum, the teachers have to try to build the social life of these children. And that's why in our system we have life skills. Although we don't teach it just as a topic, yes, but we put it in all the subjects. So when I'm teaching mathematics, I put life skills. When I teach English and any subject, life skills. And then the teachers themselves try to be very, very good role models. And then understand the children, each individual learner. The teachers also who teach in Islam must be very, very supportive and responsive to Islam situation. because the situation is different from what other situations are. Children in the slums come to school with a lot of baggage. They come to school, parents bring them because they know that school can make a change in life. So those parents bring their children and the enthusiasm in them. Children come very willing to learn, very happy, and we found out that very good children come out of these settlements, children with very good talents. Actually, when you exploit their talents, you find that they can actually maximize their potential through education.
You come here for adult education right now, right?
Yes.
How often do you come here?
We normally come every day.
Every day.
Uh,
And what do you learn here? Why do you come for the adult education? What does it give you?
Surely education can change my life because I have no job. By now I'm doing the white collar job, the what?
Blue collar
The
jobs,
blue
all
collar
the jobs.
the old job, the old jobs, yani kuosha nguo. The washing of the clothes. So if I educate, I know I'll get a better job in my future.
Uhuru Kenyatta, el hombre más adinerado de Kenia e hijo del padre fundador de la patria, ganó la carrera presidencial en 2013. Él y su familia son tan ricos que muchos creen que el clan Kenyatta no tendría interés en involucrarse en algún intento por aumentar su fortuna. Luego que Uhuru fuera investido presidente, Kibera y otras barriadas de Nairobi se mantuvieron en calma. Ello se debió a que la gente tenía fe en la nueva constitución y las reformas judiciales recientes, y a que el señor Kenyatta se comprometió a respetar y defender la nueva Carta Fundamental. Los Estados Unidos y Reino Unido expresaron su molestia con los resultados de las elecciones en Kenia, país reconocido como un aliado incondicional de Washington en África Oriental. Oficialmente, los países de Occidente criticaron el rol de Uhuru en la violencia posteleccionaria de 2007, pero hoy en día muchos piensan que lo que irritó a Occidente fueron las creencias y promesas independientes y nacionalistas del presidente. Está por verse si el señor Kenyatta y su gobierno desearán y serán capaces de poner en práctica las reformas que podrían beneficiar a la mayoría pobre del país. Lo que es cierto es que, por primera vez en años, un amplio sector de la sociedad kenyatta está esperanzado.
I think there is a tremendous wave on the judicial side and goodwill to see that this nation is driven in the right direction. There is a movement in the right direction in terms of social justice. In terms of social justice, there's a lot of movement progressively that is taking place, though not at the level that it is needed, but it is there.
The school is large, with very large classes. Even a class with 80 children, one teacher. I call myself a hero because of what I have done with the children in informal settlements.
But it's incredible that you have all these big spaces and activities, and you have, but you have a combination of like gangsters smoking drugs, but you also have jump ropes and everything all in one compound.
All one compound. That's why I was telling you, you have to be very responsive to what is happening, very responsive and supportive. So when I support the children, it's easier to tell them, although they are smoking drugs, please don't. And then instead of smoking drugs, come here. That's my name.
pobreza. No hay tiempo que perder. En las barriadas de Kenia se vive como en una zona de guerra con millones de víctimas. Occidente ha ayudado a marginarlos durante años y décadas. Pero quienes han aceptado llevar a Kenia por la vía del capitalismo salvaje han recibido su ayuda y sus becas. Es bien sabido que una de las personas que recibió entrenamiento en los Estados Unidos y que colaboró en el giro a la derecha de Kenia era el padre de Barack Obama, el presidente de ese país. En Kenia existe buena voluntad y deseo de mejorar las cosas, pero a diferencia de América Latina, hay muy pocos individuos progresistas con la conciencia política, la ideología y las habilidades para llevar la batuta. Para salvar la vida de millones de hombres, mujeres y niños, esto debe cambiar pronto y de forma radical.
La pobreza en los pueblos de África, la pobreza en los pueblos de América Latina y el Caribe, y la pobreza en el mundo la tenemos que entender como producto del desarrollo del capitalismo mundial, que concentra la economía en pocas manos y concentra en pocas familias el desarrollo económico de los países donde el capitalismo ha encontrado sustento. Nosotros somos muy respetuosos de las particularidades de cada una de las políticas sociales que implementa cada país, pero sí estamos convencidos que la solución de la pobreza está en el marco de lo que podría ser el socialismo democrático, que nosotros como venezolanos estamos convencidos que es a través de allí que podemos paliar los grandes problemas que han contribuido al subdesarrollo de nuestros pueblos. Hoy podemos decir que hemos ido conquistando logros sustantivos en materia educativa, en materia de salud, en materia de cultura, en materia tecnológica, gracias a estos logros propiciados por el presidente Chávez y ahora continuados por el gobierno del presidente Maduro.
Latin America has been of big influence to us because of the shared history that we've had. If it is about slavery, if it is about colonization, if it is about imperialism, you know, the imperial attacks first started in Latin America before they came to Africa. So those are some of the things that we've seen. And the best thing about Latin America is that it is rising above all this. We are now having socialist governments being elected. We are now having leftist governments being elected. And that is of great inspiration to us, especially the revolutions in Cuba, the process in Venezuela, what is happening in Bolivia, what is happening in Nicaragua. The other day we saw that in Chile they elected a leftist, socialist president and government. So it is of great inspiration for us as socialists here in Kenya and Africa.
Kenia acaba de celebrar 50 años de independencia. Por los 3 o 4 años yo sé que el gobierno ha estado muy interesado en intercambiar con otros países, por ejemplo, sobre todo de América Latina, Cuba, Brasil, Venezuela, Chile, Argentina. Hay algunos intercambios, pero no tanto para poder influenciar o mejorar el sistema educacional aquí en Kenia. Sobre todo lo que pueden aprender Kenia de esos países de América Latina es mejorar en educación sabiendo el orden de educación, qué es educación, para qué educación, por qué educación, para quién educación. Porque eso podría mejorar la familia, la comunidad, la sociedad, el país.
Venezuela is a developing country, and Venezuela is the second largest producer of oil. We have discovered oil in Kenya, in very many oil fields, inside the interior and even in the coastline. So if we follow the example of Venezuela and Hugo Chavez the way he transformed and used oil for the better, then we shall begin to transform our society for everybody, and we shall start to end poverty, and we shall start to create development. If you follow Chavez, I wish Uhuru Kenyatta now, who is the president of Kenya, follows the example of Hugo Chavez, then we shall go somewhere.